Welcome. This is 14th or 15th of these Winter Village Baker's Dozen performances that we put on in this classroom. So it's quite a long tradition. Glad you're participating in this tradition. We have a few alums from previous shows. Raise your hand if you are no longer attending this school, but if you were, okay, you don't have to raise your hand. But you were in one of the shows, that would be Sarah back there, Anastasia's behind her, Layla's right here, Carmen's hiding back there, and Leah and Maddie. All these people were in these shows recently. Is that Jonathan?
Yeah, Jonathan.
All right, Jonathan too. Yep. And Craig, there's Craig, a former baker. All right. So that's one of the best things about this night is you get to see the old students. They come back, and at least for a few years, they can't wait to see the exact same thing that they've done for the last several years. This is a Reader's Theater presentation. It's seasonal. There's a gentleman named Aaron Shepard who writes Reader's Theater presentations, aaronshep.com if you want to go see some of the other ones. We do them in class in addition to this one. This one's seasonal though. This is called the Baker's Dozen, and it takes place in the Dutch colony that is now known as New York. The Dutch settled New York, and the stories of Rip Van Winkle and the Legend of Sleepy Hollow are sort of from a time a little bit later, but that's also about the kind of area where this was. This might be earlier than that, though. This is early in the colonies. And it's about a baker who is very honest but not so generous and might need a lesson in generosity. And the baker is visited by St. Nicholas. And the way that the Dutch know St. Nicholas is that he's tall and thin, and he's a bishop. He's not a guy that climbs around in chimneys, but he does appear in some magical ways, or at least mysterious ways, we'll put it that way. Reader's Theater is done minimalist. So we allow the narrators to use scripts. The narrators carry most of the action. We do have some lead characters, but the narrators' roles are at least as important. The narrators carry most of the story. We don't do much with sets. What we've done today with sets is way more than we do for any other of our Reader's Theater presentations. We actually have moved furniture around. And then obviously we've done the board right here. And we have a little bit of costuming that goes on too. We try to make St. Nicholas look a little bit like St. Nicholas and then switch to the little old lady. And that works reasonably well. But you'll have to bear with us. You'll have to sort of take your mind back to this time and think about the magic of theater and allow yourself to be transported. We'll introduce the characters and all of the players after the play, but before we do that, I'd like to thank our 6th grade class for doing the production for this. The 6th graders have the role of overseeing, of rearranging how we're going to set things up, of hosting. So what you see behind us is put on by the 6th graders, and that's Brooke and Leah and Thomas and Joseph. The 5th graders get the really meaty roles. They get to be St. Nicholas and the baker. The 4th graders just typically have the hardest job of all because they have to take the non-speaking parts, those bit parts that nobody wants. And they have to wait for the opportunity for a 5th grader to take ill or to come up with laryngitis the night of the show. And the beauty of it is that by the time they get to 5th grade, they've already memorized every single line in the play because when they were 4th graders, they wanted that to happen so badly, and they wanted to be prepared. So they actually have a very important role in this. You will see they help present the magic of theater for us. So we'll introduce them by name after the presentation. But for now, thanks very much for coming. Enjoy the show. And Curt.
In the Dutch colonial town, later known as Albany, New York, there lived a baker, Van Amsterdam, who was as honest as he could be.
Each morning, he checked and balanced his scales, and he took great care to give his customers exactly what they paid for. Not more, and not less.
Van Amsterdam's shop was always busy because people trusted him and because he was a good baker as well. And never was the shop busier than the days before December 6th when the Dutch celebrated St. Nicholas Day.
At that time of year, people flocked to the baker's shop to buy fine St. Nicholas cookies.
Made of gingerbread, iced in red and white, they looked just like St. Nicholas as the Dutch know him.
Tall and thin, with a high red bishop's cap and a long red bishop's cloak.
One St. Nicholas Day morning, the baker was just ready for business when the door of his shop flew open.
In walked an old woman, wrapped in a long black shawl.
I have come for a dozen of St. Nicholas cookies.
Taking a tray, Van Amsterdam counted out 12 cookies. He started to wrap them, but the woman reached out and stopped him.
I have asked for a dozen. You have only given me 12.
Madam, everyone knows that a dozen is 12.
I say a dozen is 13. Give me one more.
Van Amsterdam was not a man to bear foolishness.
Madam, my customers get exactly what they pay for. Not more and not less.
And you may keep the cookies.
She turned to go, but stopped at the door.
Van Amsterdam, however honest you may be, your heart is small and your fist is tight. Fall again, mount again, learn how to count again.
Then she was gone.
From that day, everything went wrong in Van Amsterdam's bakery.
His bread rose too high, or not at all.
His pies were sour or too sweet.
His cakes crumbled or were chewy.
His cookies were...
His cookies were burnt or doughy.
His customers soon noticed the difference. Before long, most of them were going to other bakers.
That old woman has bewitched me. Is this how my honesty is rewarded?
A year passed.
The baker grew poorer and poorer.
Since he sold little, he baked little, and his shelves were nearly bare. His last few customers slipped away.
Finally, on the day before St. Nicholas Day, not one customer came to Van Amsterdam's shop.
At day's end, the baker sat alone, staring at his unsold St. Nicholas cookies.
I wish St. Nicholas could help me now. Then he closed the shop and went sadly to bed.
That night, the baker had a dream. He was a boy again, one in a crowd of happy children, and there in the midst of them was St. Nicholas himself.
The bishop's white horse stood beside him, its baskets filled with gifts. Nicholas pulled out one gift after another and handed them to the children.
But Van Amsterdam noticed something strange. No matter how many presents Nicholas passed out, there was always more to give.
In fact, the more he took from the baskets, the more they seemed to hold.
Then Nicholas handed a gift to Van Amsterdam. It was one of the baker's own St. Nicholas cookies.
Van Amsterdam looked up to thank him, but it was no longer St. Nicholas standing there.
Smiling down at him was an old woman with a long black shawl.
Wardrobe malfunction.
Van Amsterdam awoke with a start. Moonlight shone through the half-closed shutters as he lay there, thinking, I always give my customers exactly what they pay for. Not more and not less. But why not give more?
The next morning, St. Nicholas Day, the baker rose early.
He mixed his gingerbread dough and rolled it out.
He molded the shapes and baked them.
He iced them in red and white to look just like St. Nicholas.
And the cookies were as fine as any he had made.
Van Amsterdam had just finished when the door flew open. In walked the old woman with the long black shawl.
I have asked for a dozen of your St. Nicholas cookies.
In great excitement, Van Amsterdam counted out 12 cookies.
And one more. In this shop, from now on, a dozen is 13.
You have learned to count well. You will surely be rewarded.
She paid for the cookies and started out. But as the door swung shut, the baker's eyes seemed to play a trick on him.
He thought he glimpsed the tail end of a long red cloak.
As the old woman foretold, Van Amsterdam was rewarded. When people heard, he counted 13 as a dozen to get more customers than ever.
In fact, Van Amsterdam grew so wealthy that the other bakers in town began doing the same.
From there, the practice spread to other towns and at last through all the American colonies.
And this, they say, is how 13 became the baker's dozen.
A custom common for over a century.
And alive in some places to this day.
And curtain. But they also are the children, and you may have noticed in the magic of theater, St. Nicholas is transformed to the little old lady, and that's because our children are there blocking the amazing transformation, and then he stands up and there he is. So, come on out, the children and the customers, and we have, go ahead and stand in line so everybody can see everybody. Henry, R.C., we have 3 Emmas. This is only one of our Emmas. Emma, and this is Emma E. Mia, Jonathan's kind of in the back here, moving from place to place. Jacopo, Cooper, and Colin. And give them a big hand. You may have heard the names, and so now you can place some faces with names, right? And Trey. Trey is our dresser. This is a very important role. In the theater, that's what they call it. It's the dresser, right? But he's one of our technical wizards. So that's Trey. And we also have in the back Thomas. Oh, he came front. Okay, he wanted to take the bow. Thomas is our lighting director. Narrators, please stand up. We have Peyton and Dylan and Emerson and Kate. And Baker and Nicholas, come on out. And come on up front.
Oh, okay. I see where you're going.
We have Phil with St. Nicholas and the little old lady.
Yeah, the one with the spot.
Right. And Seth is our baker. Thank you.